What's going on, everybody? I am here with a man that needs absolutely no introduction. I am here with the great Anthony Scaramucci. How you doing, Anthony?
Great, the great Anthony Scaramucci. I love
The,
that. Okay, yeah.
the,
Let me just lift my chair a little bit so I feel better about my height and width. How are you, JT?
I'm doing fantastic, honestly. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day. I know we all have pretty busy schedules, but I'm very appreciative to have you
No,
here.
you have a great program, and so I was actually flattered to be on. I do listen to you, and I appreciate you inviting me. Thank you.
Oh, fantastic! That's great to hear because I know we're a smaller but growing channel here. But I think if we keep at it, we'll be at something big later on. I want to jump right into it while I have you here because I know we don't have too much time today. But let's talk about the broad markets before we jump into some more important things. We can talk about crypto, we can talk about SkyBridge, FTX, and all that jazz. But I want to get your take on the current state of the markets. And I want to ask, do you think inflation, inflation came in lower about 2 months in a row? Do you think it's peaked, or do you think that's some anomaly and we're going to see a higher CPI print next time? And what's your take on the state of the markets currently?
Okay, so I will tell your viewers and listeners whatever I say to do the exact opposite because I've
Yeah.
gotten this entirely wrong. And so I want your viewers to know that I've been humbled by life and I've been humbled by markets. So my thinking about this, and I'm consistent with this with my investment process, is that this inflation, while not transitory, okay, the Fed got that wrong. It's not systemic. We are not in the 1970s. We are in a aberrational period inducted by the Fed's massive liquidity stimulus during the COVID-19 crisis, which is now abating. And you've got a chain disconnection that we have to reconnect the supply chain. And you got all this money swashing around in the markets. So the combination of those two things is causing this current 8-ish% inflation. Now, it's stickier than we thought. If you had asked me a year ago, I would have thought we would already been out of it. So maybe we're not out of it right now, but we'll certainly be out of it in 12 months. This is not your father's stagflation 1970s style recession. So I'm hoping that the Fed will provide some relief later, but it's hard to know. I mean, we'll see there. When I say by relief, they'll raise rates again, but at some point they'll signal to the markets that they're done raising rates and they'll be more in a neutral position.
Now, do you have any guesses on how many more rate hikes we have left? Because we're already seeing rates well above a lot of averages. I think we just broke a trend line that we were on for the last couple decades. I think the latest hike that we're going to have today, probably about 75 basis point, brings us up to about 3% federal funds rate. And if you're saying that we have maybe about 12 more months to see this kind of inflation, when do you think we're going to start to see that turnaround in the market? I know we've got Kathy Wood already talking about the possibility of disinflation as well as Elon Musk. What's
Yes.
your take on that?
Yes. So I mean, again, I could be wrong, but I think the most it will be is 12 months. But I actually think this by the middle of the first quarter, I think you're going to start to see downward numbers. You just look at commodity prices, look at oil, look at gas,
Yeah.
all of that stuff is down. So anything that you need for manufacturing is down. The gas prices, obviously, at the pump are down. So I do think that this stuff is going to roll off. I think it rolls off before 12 months. I'm just making the point that I have been wrong.
Yeah.
So let's say we just extend it out. It doesn't matter if you're a long-term investor. And I think that's the message to your clients. Kathy Wood is sitting there. Her stuff is down. My Bitcoin exposure is down 60% this year, but it's my Bitcoin exposure. I own it. I own the same number of coins. I think if you're not leveraged, you can be very patient. I don't have any leverage in any of my portfolios. So I'm just sitting here waiting for this aberration to end. And when it does, I think you're going to be in a period of disinflation. I think Kathy's going to be right. You have so much massive technology, JT, that it would be impossible for us to see spikes in inflation. Now, if you wanted to push back on me, you say, well, Anthony, you've got real wage growth in the United States. This is the first time we've had this in about 20 years. And I would say, yes, that usually is a driver for inflation, but I think it's going to be offset by declines in prices in goods. So the service number may be up a little bit, but the goods number is coming down. And I think you're going to see the Fed this could be the last hike. You may have one more hike. Last point, and I'll be brief, is just look at the inversion in the bond market right now. So the 2 years at 4, but the 10 years at 350. So the bond market's already telling you that we've got it in the near term, but we're going to be, if you want to extend out, they're telling you that 2 years probably going to 250 from 350, which is why the 30 years at 350, meaning it's not moving from there because of expectations. So to me, I like where we are. It's a bear market. You have to build your business in a bear market. You have to stay patient. And, the problem in life, because I've been doing this a long time, everybody is a long-term investor until they have short-term losses, JT. The minute they have short-term losses, they flip out and they go crazy, and they go crazy on their financial advisors, and, they blame everybody but themselves. But the truth of the matter, shouldn't blame anybody. Just sit in the positions, high-quality stuff you will do very well in over long periods of time.
Yeah, and to your point, I mean, on another show I co-host, The Next Block, we've had Mark Yusko on 2 different times, and he's made the point that in markets, it seems like it's the only place where when things go on sale, people run out of the store. If you're going to shop for a movie or dresses or clothes or something like that, if something's 50% off, you might buy 2 of them. But in markets, whether it's stocks or crypto, when things go 20, 30, 50% off, people run with a lot of fear. Which is very, very interesting to see that human psychology at play there.
Well, he's one of the smartest people I know, and he's been right. And frankly, on the crypto space, he was earlier than I was. He got there ahead of me. And I would actually say to you that I owe Mark a debt, because in reading his stuff, I think he pushed me directionally into crypto. And so people will say, well, geez, you should be hitting him for that, right? Because isn't your crypto down 60%? And I would say, yes, that's true. I bought my first Bitcoin at about 16, 17,000 in the November timeframe of 2020. So I'm roughly where I was. Obviously, we had that huge shoot up, but I think that was a over-exaggeration, a little bit of a bubble. But I think that the technology is phenomenal. The applications are growing. The applications are growing for Web3 broadly. We just made an investment in a token called Vulcan Forge, which is a gaming token, which I think is going to have a big role in the future of the metaverse. And listen, if you really look at this stuff, if you're a traditional financial services person like me, and you study this technology, you're like, okay, this is better technology than what we have out there right now. If I want to trade a stock, it's got to go through 7 different entities. Okay, over the blockchain, it could cross peer-to-peer. If I want to do a transaction with my local restaurant, I can just wallet to them from my smartphone the money, and I can avoid American Express, and I can avoid MasterCard and Visa. Well, you know what? That's something that's going to happen, because that creates cost savings. It creates a window of opportunity for entrepreneurs to create businesses to exploit that. And so I see it. I know you see it. Yusko certainly sees it. But, like everything, you go through woeful bear markets as you're making progress. Amazon, 22 short years ago, went from 116 to 6. A lot of my contemporaries swore it off. I'll never own a technology stock for the rest of their lives. That was a big mistake. I mean, it turned out that technology over that generation, that 22-year period of time, technology turned out to be the best investment thesis in the history of the United States, in the history of U.S. capitalism. So I don't know. I think we're there again right now, and I want to encourage people to look at it the way we're looking at it.
And that's a point well taken. I mean, sometimes these bear markets can scare you away from opportunities that are maybe once or twice in a lifetime. So that's a fantastic point. And I want to move along to crypto, because we're talking about it a little bit now. The news just recently came out that Sam Bankman-Fried of FTX made about a $45 million bet on SkyBridge, with nearly about 30% stake in the firm. Can I ask what prompted this partnership, and how will it shape the future of SkyBridge?
Well, listen, I think I prompted it, actually. I mean, if Sam was here, I think he would say I prompted it. I was on the Disney cruise and I had a port of call in the Bahamas. And my wife had signed up for the Baha Mar water park. Okay. And I'm like, oh my God. I mean, okay. So I called Sam. I said, it's just you. I know you're an acceptable alibi to my wife. I'm going to tell her I'm having lunch with you, and you'll spare me from 8 hours of being in that water park. So he laughed. He showed up at the Costa restaurant at the Rosewood, and we sat down together, and we had a 2-hour lunch, and we talked about a whole host of different things: business, sports, politics. And we have a great relationship. We have a great partnership in our conference business. We did Crypto Bahamas together. We did SALT last year together. We just finished the SALT conference in September this past week here in New York. But this was August 6th, it was Saturday afternoon, and Sam and I were looking at each other. I said, well, let's find a way to get closer. And then he said to me, well, what do you have in mind? I said, well, what if you buy 15% of my business? And then Sam came back to me and said, well, I really like buying bigger chunks than that. I don't think I was ready at that time to sell 100% of the business. At 17 years old, I'm the founder and managing partner. So we settled on 30%, but he does have an option to buy the remainder in the next 2 years. Or actually, to be totally candid, it's 85%. I would keep 15 for myself, but who knows? Maybe we'll end up selling the whole thing to him. My point, though, JT, is I have to work. I'm 58 years young. I told Sam, you're 30, but I think I'm 30. I got to work. And so I don't want to get knocked out of the box and retire early. Certainly, thank God the good Lord has blessed me where I don't, quote unquote, necessarily need to work, but I need to work. Okay. So I hope to be working for the rest of my life. I look at Henry Kissinger and guys like Hank Greenberg of the Star and Company. Those are my role models. I want to work into my 90s. If God lets me stay on the planet that long. And so to me, this is a great relationship because it's a cross-generational relationship. I think Sam has access to anybody in the world. There's no question about that. But I have 3-decade-plus relationships with some people that may benefit Sam's broader business as he's scaling out FTX. And so I'd like to put a senior relationship manager's hat on and go to work with him and his team to see if I can make their business better as a player coach, as a mentor, and as somebody that could help them grow. But also, if you know my personality or people at SkyBridge, I'm a big collaborator. No one has ever worked for me, but people work with me. That's how I think about our business. And Sam, I think, shares that philosophy. So I would love to have the opportunity to help him grow that business. I think he's going to build the Amazon of decentralized finance. He's well ahead of the game. He's probably the smartest person I've come in contact with. And he's a good person. So on top of all that other stuff, just the fact that he's a good person is good by me.
Fantastic. And I have to ask for my Algorand community, the best way to on-ramp into all of these different chains is through USDC, the USD coin. And a lot of these major exchanges like Coinbase, FTX, and what have you do not support USDC on Algorand yet. Right. With this newfound partnership with Sam Bankman-Fried at FTX, do you think there's any way you might be able to pull his leg a little bit to speed up the process to get USDC on Algorand?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So let's start with the positives. Prior to Crypto Bahamas, handshake with Sam and his team, we onboarded Algorand. So there's spot cash trading for Algorand. I think this, Sean Ford, who's a personal friend of mine, I think the world of. I frankly would like to see Sean Ford be the permanent CEO at Algorand as opposed to the interim CEO. I think we've got to get a little bit more management clarity at Algorand, proper. And I think we're going to get that hopefully soon. And as that starts to happen, yes, I do think there's an opportunity to do that. I will certainly be making the pitch for that. I'm also obviously long a lot of Algorand. I wrote a book recently about Algorand. It got to the bestseller. Oh, thank you for holding up the book. Did you get a chance to read it, JT?
I'm almost done with it. It's a pretty quick read, but I can't say I've finished it yet, but I am almost done.
Yeah, but it's a I tried to write in layman's terms what Algorand is, why I'm so positive on it,
Yeah.
what its features are, why it doesn't go down, all of these different things. That's not to say that there won't be a Solana, that there won't be an Avalanche. I don't think one chain is going to control the whole of Web3. I just don't think that that's possible. But could the chains that are the fastest be the winners? I believe that that will be the case. And so that's things like Solana and Algorand. And, for me, I would like to see Algorand grow. I'm a long-term investor. We probably hold over 100 million tokens. When it was $2, I had probably $250 million in Algorand. Unfortunately, now at 33, 34 cents, I don't. But I still hold the tokens. Same way I hold all of my Bitcoin. I hold it unlevered. And with the influx of FIFA, the community around FIFA, the NFTs there, the possibility of getting this USDC, not just at places like FTX, but maybe even a Binance or Kraken, places like that would be positive. Just briefly, I'm hoping that we have some clarity related to the long-term management of Algorand, meaning I'm hoping Sean is named permanent CEO by Decipher. I'll be speaking there and interviewing people. I'm super excited about that. You didn't ask me about this, JT, but I will address it. People say to me, well, why did you drop the Scaramucci.algo?
It was next on the list.
Yeah, so I dropped it for two reasons, frankly. Okay, number one, there's a big community there of influencers that are rising on the table. I have 1 million Twitter followers because of my political associations. My fight with Donald Trump got me 1 million Twitter followers. I took myself out of that game because I want other people to rise in the rankings there. It's not a shot against Algorand or anything like that. And then the second reason, which I think is also an important reason, because of my relationship with FTX, we are in a multi-coin philosophy, right? So if you look at my holdings, I own Ethereum, I own Bitcoin, I own some Solana, I own probably more Algorand than I do of a Solana at this point. But I need to think in a multi-coin sort of a way. So I just made my name more agnostic. So two reasons. I want to help these other influencers get up that list. And number two, I've got to think like a multi-coin person at this point in my career. It doesn't mean I have any less bullishness on Algorand. I just wrote a book on Algorand. Yep. I just staked my career and reputation on Algorand. So I don't know how much more I could be doing for the community. And certainly I'm going to try to do more. That USDC thing, I'm certainly going to put in the ask on that. But I do think we got to get the management bus cleared up. Who's driving that bus before we can get to that destination?
Yeah, I agree. It would be cool to see him go from interim CEO to the permanent CEO. I completely agree there. And your point's well taken about the .algo name. Honestly, I mean, you still have Algorand in your bio, so I don't know how many people are giving you too much flack.
I just wrote a book. It got to the top. It was number one for 11 days. You know how hard that is to do on Amazon? And it's still selling briskly. And I gave out 2,000 of those books to the SALT delegates last week. So every single person that showed up at SALT, which included communities related to Solana, communities related to the FTT token, Serum, I gave out an Algorand book. I don't know what more I could be doing. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, I mean, but at Twitter being Twitter, we have a lot of anonymous trolling that goes on Twitter, and Twitter being Twitter, I get that.
Yeah,
but listen,
absolutely.
I'm in the game.
Hey, the competitive side of me doesn't mind too much, because there was at one point where I was, in the top 10 on that list, and then guys like you came in and bumped me down to like 17 or so, and I'm slowly climbing back up. So the competitive side of me is totally okay with it.
Yeah, you deserve to be in the top 10. I remember, I got my following from politics. Hopefully it'll churn out, and I'll have more of a following from DeFi over the course of the next couple of years.
Absolutely. So you mentioned that you're going to Algorand's Decipher. Is there anything else about Algorand this year besides Decipher and FIFA that excites you?
Well, I mean, those are two gigantic things, frankly. So I don't
they are. So,
but I would say, in addition to that, is Sean. I think that if he gets the mantle of leadership there permanently, I think he'll set the right course trajectory. I think he knows where the community needs to go. I think he knows how to grow the community. And listen, I love Steve. He's a great guy. Looks like Steve probably wanted to retire to pursue other interests, but Sean has the ancestry. He
Mm.
has the background, and I think he would be great at it. And I hope that happens. And listen, who knows? Silvio obviously is going to make that decision. I've let my opinion be known, and I'm happy to share my opinion with you and your viewers and listeners.
Absolutely. And before we move on for Algorand, I just want to make a little side note that one of the impressive things about it, at least the on-chain metrics over the course of this bear market, is if you go and look at a lot of other L1s like Solana, Avalanche, and so forth, their total value locked or their DeFi ecosystem has retracted over this bear market, where Algorand has grown. It's been one of the only ones to do so. Now, it still has a lot more room to grow to catch up to the other TVLs of the network, of the crypto space. But it is encouraging to see that even throughout a bear market, it's one of the only chains whose ecosystem is actually growing rather than contracting. So I thought that was a really interesting thing to see, and definitely encouraging for the future.
Listen. I wrote a 110-page book as to why that should be the case, right? So
Yeah.
I'm all about everything that you're saying.
So let's move on a little bit from Algorand. So Ethereum, as everyone knows, recently completed its merge to proof of stake. What's your opinion of the Ethereum merge, and does this merge give you any concern for any of the competing layer one protocols?
Well, when you say concern, Ethereum is the big gorilla, because it's the first of its kind. And I would say this, I think it's unbelievably impressive what they were able to do. You have a
Absolutely.
decentralized footprint, and you were able to create this merge, if you will, or this conversion. And so I am blown away, impressed by it. I think it elongates Ethereum's long-term survivability as an operating system. Remember, if I'm going to use this metaphor for you, there's a Microsoft operating system and an Apple operating system, or there's an Android operating system and an iOS Apple operating system. You have to think of these things as almost like operating systems. These will be the protocols that people use to transact with each other. And I think that Ethereum making this adaptation will make them relevant for a very long period of time. What you're always worried about in technology is something that you have that's the hot dot becomes irrelevant. It gets bypassed. When I first logged onto the internet, I had access to it through AOL. I had access through it through Yahoo, the search mechanism, Netscape, the web browser. And look at where we are today, and look at how many of those things have left the system. MySpace was a great idea, but Facebook perfected it, right? Pets.com actually went out of business, but it was a great idea because we now have something called Chewy, which is very successful. Webvans was a good idea, but we now have something called Amazon Fresh or Instacart, very successful. So the point is, sometimes the technology has to adapt and move. And so I applaud the Ethereum guys for doing that. We're long a lot of Ethereum. We like it long term. It does put some pressure on the other layer twos, to answer your question, but I don't think it's consequential. I think
Yeah.
Solana will be a big holder of market share for layer ones. I'm hoping that Algorand will also be a big layer one market share. But let's just be honest with each other. The community is super important. So you have technology, and then can the people that created the technology create the community? Well, Vitalik and Anatoly, the answer is yes. As it relates to Algorand, the answer is maybe. Yes, they have a good community, but it's smaller community. Your point is well taken. It is growing, but I would like to see somebody like Sean get the mantle of leadership and put it into that other category. I think it's possible to do that because the technology is so good. But look, if I've got a great restaurant, JT, and no one knows where the hell it is, and I'm cooking amazing food, no one knows where it is, it would be way better for me to have that restaurant on Yelp. It would be way better for me to have positive people in the community saying that the food is great. We're going to have more traffic into the restaurant. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I mean, it kind of
So,
boils down to the if a tree falls in the woods and no one's around to hear it, does it make a sound? I mean, like you said, it could be the best tech in the world, but if no one's around to know about it or use it, is it going to be consequential in the end?
very,
Which
very good tech. It's very stable tech. It's a sturdy platform to run things on. And there are other sturdy platforms, but like the cloud, okay, when we first met the cloud, someone came to the office and said, "Hey, we're going to take your confidential information and we're going to put it on our server."
yeah,
And we said, "What?" And then you say, "Yeah, I don't want to do that." But then you realize, well, wait a minute, it may be safer on your server, okay, because you're going to have more anti-hacking defense mechanisms, and it may be more confidential on your server because no one will even know that it's me because it's some anonymous account on your server. And so then all of a sudden the cloud proliferated. And by the way, it became cheaper. I didn't have to have all these servers. The same way I use a paychecks. I use a payroll service and I don't have my own internal payroll department. That's cheaper for me. Let's do that with the cloud. Okay. And so I think that these layer ones are a lot like that. So there's an Amazon cloud, there's a Salesforce cloud or an Oracle cloud, there's an IBM cloud. You know all the clouds, the Microsoft cloud, et cetera. And so I think you're going to have these layer one protocols. Solana is going to represent something. Uh, Ethereum will represent something. Maybe it'll be more NFT focused. I don't know. But we'll be sitting here in 10 years. We'll say, okay, look at that evolution of what happened. There are 15 layer ones that are incredibly fast. They're very safe. They're secure. And they're operating large tranches of commercial activity. But I don't think there'll be just one layer one. I don't think that will be the case.
yeah, I'll ultimately agree with you, and it seems to be just kind of a trend of capitalism and markets in general, in the sense that an industry will pop up. There'll be 20, 30, 40 different players in the industry. I mean, in crypto, there's dozens and dozens of L1s currently, but over time things consolidate and monopolize, if you will, and then maybe we'll have 5 to 10 of these smart contract platforms that win in the future. So I mostly agree. I don't think it's going to be a winner take all system, but although I do think it's going to consolidate some, I don't think we're going to have dozens and dozens of L1s into the future as we have now. But I do think we'll have probably about 10 or 12 if my guesses are within reason. But I do want to ask about a little bit about Skybridge. So it was reported in July that Skybridge was going to launch a crypto venture fund investing in Web3 and crypto startups. Happening in this September, actually. Have there been any exciting developments on that? Where's that stand currently?
So I have to be careful about that because I think there's like certain regulations where I'm allowed to
Ah,
talk about things or not. So
yep.
I apologize for not being more forthcoming, but stay tuned. Okay. I think our partnership with FTX is also going to benefit what you've learned about in the press, which has already been reported. So that would be my answer to that. I'm sorry I can't be
No,
more
no.
than vague about that because we've got all these different regulatory things that we have to be
Yeah.
guided by.
No, I absolutely understand. I don't want you to say anything that you shouldn't be able to say yet. One more question, maybe this is along the same lines. I'm not sure if you can answer this one, but it was also reported in June that Skybridge was filing for a spot Bitcoin ETF. Have there
Yes.
been any further developments on this? Has it been denied, or is it still in the still in the
Yes, so
pipeline?
our first application was denied after the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust was denied July 1st. We have an application pending. We have not filed it yet because we are still waiting for some regulatory guidance. There may be an opportunity where Bitcoin gets regulated by the CFTC and not the SEC, at which point, as you know, we have a Bitcoin futures, which is regulated by the CFTC.
Yeah.
So the short answer there is we are definitely going to refile. I expect Skybridge to have a cash ETF product. Of course, it'll be among many ETF products. I'm also proud to tell you that we're going to be an early first in investor in BlackRock's Bitcoin Trust. So Skybridge, in solidarity with the Bitcoiners out there, trying to send a message to people. BlackRock's in the game now. We want to help them. And so I think we're writing a $10 million check to them. And my attitude is the more people in the pool, the better for everybody in the community. And that will also help the layer ones as those prices start to move up.
Absolutely. So last question, Anthony. I know we've got to wrap it up here, but it's a rough time in the markets. Where are, obviously this isn't financial advice, but where do you see the most opportunity in the markets for newcomers that are coming in? They're seeing, everything looks a little terrifying. They're not sure what to do, maybe standing on the sidelines. Or, are you seeing any opportunity out there? And if so, where?
So my old boss had the best advice, and I've tried to, as hard as I can, to live by it. But I also want to point out to people that fear always enters the game. And I would be remiss in telling you that I have not at times been fearful, even during this bear market. When Bitcoin got down to 17, I said, okay, well, maybe it's going to go to zero at this point. You get that fear factor in your personality. So even the most seasoned investors, the most experienced people do experience some of that. So the first thing I would tell people is fight that fear. My old boss said, if you dollar cost average into high quality stuff, stocks and bonds, or in this case, cryptocurrencies, and you just consistently do that one day at a time, 1 month at a time, and you pay yourself first. So even if you're making $50,000 or $100,000, it really doesn't matter. Take 10% of your money and pay yourself first. You have a utility bill, you have a mortgage, you have your taxes. But how about yourself? Write yourself a check and put it into some really high quality things. In bear markets, you'll buy more of it. And in bull markets, you'll buy less of it. But then you'll look back and you'll have a big portfolio. And that's something that somebody told me when I was 27. It's hard to believe. It's 31 short years ago. I'm now 58. And that has served me very, very well. And so I would encourage people to be blind to market cycles and blind to market sentiment, but be disciplined and on target for, this is a certain amount of money that I'm going to put into the market every month, every 6 months, once a year, whatever it is. Get yourself in a habit of paying yourself first. And before you know it, you'll look back and say, my God, I have a pretty decent nest egg.
I think that's a fantastic way to end the episode. I appreciate you very much for taking the time out of your day to come on the show, Anthony. This has been fantastic, and I'm sure the audience is going to love it once it does come out.
Well, I wish you the best, JT. Congratulations on everything you're doing.
You as well. Now, hopefully I'll see you in Dubai to get the copy of this signed.
Okay, you got it. That's a promise. It may be worth more unsigned, JT. I just want to point out. I look forward to signing it for you.
Awesome. I look forward to meeting you in person. Take care, Anthony. Thanks for your time.